to the Content Bite with Lynn and Rachel.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. And just to let everybody know, this is like the 6th time that we've recorded the intro. So
I miss
bear with
having
us.
you in the room, Rachel. That's what it is.
I know, we're having one of those days.
Yeah.
So hopefully it doesn't reflect how the actual episode is going to unfold. But just to introduce ourselves, I'm Rachel Smith. I'm a freelance journalist, copywriter, content writer, and the founder of Rachel's List. And you are Lynn Testoni, aren't you?
I am Lynn Testoni, and I'm a writer and a content creator. So with a background in journalism, but I certainly do a lot more content marketing now, and that's why we thought we'd have a chat about this. And you do a lot of content marketing too, don't you, Rach?
I do, and essentially I think we were talking earlier about how content marketing is pretty much paying our bills right now.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think that's why it's a good time to visit it, because media is being hit hard at the moment, and there's a lot of things closing and commission freezes and pay cuts. So it's a good time to look at content marketing. And how do you see content marketing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's so true. I think there are still people commissioning out in print, as our Google Doc tells people, which we'll put in the show notes. But I think there are a lot of companies out there that still need content, and that's always going to be the case. So you've got a fairly good chance of picking up work in that area. But yeah, let's start right at the beginning. I mean, what is content marketing? I think content marketing is a type of marketing that it's usually blog posts, isn't it? But it could also be social media. It could be video. And it's basically not promoting the brand, but it's trying to generate interest in the brand or interest in its products, which might be a sort of organic mention. It might be a call to action, something like that. That's essentially what I consider content marketing to be. And that's the kind of content marketing I do, mainly writing though, blog posts, things.
Yeah, that's probably what I do too. And I usually consider it's a bit like telling a story. So in some ways it's not so different from journalism, which is why I think journalists often transition quite well. And I often do interviews with it, and some expert interviews, sometimes like customers. And I think it has a bit of a journalistic and tone to it. And it's, I think good quality content marketing is actually in demand.
Yeah, and I think a lot of agencies or a lot of brands really love working with journalists on their content marketing, because we can bring, that really strong, we can write to a word count, the storytelling side is covered, you can do a great interview, you've got amazing contacts and that sort of thing. So often I think, journalists are in high demand for this kind of work, for sure.
For sure. And also what I've seen with some of my content marketing clients in the last few weeks is that because so much of, the world is moving online, so they're wanting better quality content on their websites, and they're actually upping their website content. So I've actually seen a bit of a growth in this part of my business, actually.
So where do we even begin to look for content marketing work? What do you think?
Well, I started with some of the sort of an adjunct to my journalism. So I did a lot of work in interiors and architecture for journalism. And then I started working with the companies in that niche. So I already had some industry contacts and industry knowledge. And I think that was a great transition. I've done some agency work. You do a bit of agency work too?
Yep, I've had agencies come to me, and I've also been approached by LinkedIn by banks and people who have seen my profile, and it says that I do content marketing and also that I do journalism. So I do get approached a little bit, and also other people will refer me to an agency or pass my name around. And so that's been a part of the way that I've got content marketing work. But I do think searching for agencies and the right type of people to approach for this kind of work can be done really easily on LinkedIn. Do you think?
Yes, LinkedIn is really good because I've actually connected with people on LinkedIn, and I actually make sure my profile, I think somebody once said pimping your LinkedIn profile and just making sure you put content marketing and content and writing, and even things like the words, things like writing blog posts and articles and things in your profile is good.
I think that pimp your profile thing. God, that's a tongue twister. Was written by Darren Bagley on Rachel's List a
I
while ago.
think, yeah.
But it is a really good blog post, so we'll link to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. But before we had recorded this today, I actually did a quick Google search just on content marketing agencies in Sydney, and there's at least 10 reasonable and reputable agencies I found like immediately, and it's not a bad place to start. I'd suggest that you look at those agencies, look at who their clients are, and see if some of them resonate with them, people you might have had contact with. Plus, also within LinkedIn, what I've also done is that a lot of my former journalism colleagues have actually moved into this sort of work, and I find that people that I've worked with before are now at some of these agencies. So that's often, if I've got a personal connection, I'll send them a note via LinkedIn or, through the agency. And that, so working on that, because a lot of journalists have moved into this sort of work.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you about the, doing a search on LinkedIn. I would search for that to content marketing agencies or digital marketing agencies Australia, and then maybe create a list and start, working your way through the list. So I'd be looking at their company pages. I'd be looking for titles of people who, look like they might commission content, like content manager or senior content manager or editorial manager. It's a lot of managers. Can you think of any other titles that you'd be looking for?
Editors sometimes. I always find the word content just gets most people. Sometimes editorial, like chiefs of staff or editors in chief. Sometimes some of them still call their people editors. And I also think you mentioned before offline that it's a long game, isn't it? Don't despair if you don't get a lot of responses. I've been doing this for a while, like almost 4 years, and I've been picking up agency work bit by bit, and then I'm getting more and more. Once you've done some work, you get a bit of a portfolio going, then it starts to increase. Is that what you've found?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think what we've seen in the past few weeks is everybody scrambling. There was the media companies all scrambling to get their people working from home and getting the whole remote working thing working. Companies were literally doing massive shutdowns as they shut down their content budgets, and everybody started losing their clients in droves. So we've seen all of that. But the positive thing that I'm seeing now is I feel like some people are starting to come out of that panic mode and into more of a planning mode.
Because there's a lot more strategy going on, I see.
There is. And I'm finding some clients are coming back to me and saying, right, we know where we are now. Here's some ideas that we've got. Can you work on these going forward? And so, this is from, say, a client or a couple of clients that I might not have heard from for 6 weeks. And suddenly they've got it together and they're coming back. So we might find that happens with existing clients. But also I think this comes back to the whole letter of introduction and putting yourself out there. I really do think it's a relationships building game, and it might be that you send loads of letters of introduction out. You might target loads of these agencies and you might not hear back. You might hear back from some, but you might not hear back from others. And you just keep going. It's a bit like planting a seed, I suppose you could call it. You water that seed by following up. You keep in touch with them every so often, and hopefully you'll be top of mind if they come to commission something. Like I've heard, even through reading Lindy Alexander's blog, The Freelancers Year, that some of the letters of introduction she sent out, I think, didn't even, bear fruit, I suppose, until a year later or even more. So it really can come around, but you just have to realise, like you said, it is a long game.
It is a long game. And I also wanted to talk about the fact that there's a real undercharging trap. A lot of journalism pays a lot less than this sort of work. It's a different sort of game. And I think that I actually have heard of a lot of journalists who really undercharge, and that doesn't make them sound professional or slick. content marketing rates vary, but they usually start, like agencies, I usually started at least $60 an hour and more, depending on the technical, or the amount of work, how many interviews or the length or the depth of the story. But a lot of them can get up to like $200 an hour, particularly in like the really lucrative niches such as finance and tech. What do you find?
Yeah, I think my experience for the most part has been that they'll pay you a flat fee for content. So I find that interesting that you're talking about hourly rates, because I haven't had that. I've had more, this is what we pay, or what. I think recently I was asked to quote on content pieces and they were like, what do you charge per piece, sort of thing. So I think that does happen as well with content marketing. And so for a very low end of the scale, a research only piece, you might be offered something in the realm of 150 to 200. I would really urge you to go above 200 if you can for those pieces. Just don't accept the $50 pieces or we'll pay you 75. I mean, no, it's really hard to kind of build from there. You want to be building from like 200 if you can, and going up as they start to find you amazing and offer you more work, and you're just indispensable. So you can start adding, boosting your rates. But I think as well, then the more that's required in the piece, the more you charge. So,
Yes.
if they want research only, that's going to be a lower rate. If they want interviews, your rate goes up. If they want you to insert keywords or write metadata, your rate goes up. And you really have to, build all of that stuff into it, because it's your time and it takes time. And, a lot of brands and corporates will pay it, I think.
Yes, I find that too. I only find the only people that want hourly rates, I've found agencies sometimes go for an hourly rate. And sometimes a lot of places do ask for your rates right at the beginning, like companies. And whereas in journalism, it's different. People tend to say, this is what we pay per word, and it's often a word rate. So that's different. So for a journalist, you've got to think about your rates before you have the conversation. Otherwise, you get caught on the back foot, and then that's when you undercharge, because you don't want to go over. So do a bit of research, and but I wouldn't. I think the really simple rates, I wouldn't do anything under like $300 or $400, and I think some of mine require a lot more work, and I charge a lot more than that. But
I think though, for like people who are just starting out and trying to get a foot in the door, if you feel you have to go for lower pieces, for lower rates, like the $200 or the $250 type things, it can actually get you some of those, some of those links to show agencies, and then you can go up in your rate from there. Yeah, I agree. But I think you've we mentioned something about how, with content marketing, you're going to have to be really on the ball, literally handing in a clean piece of content that's been spell checked, has its references, everything's been double checked, up the wazoo, because there aren't necessarily editors or subs at the other end as there might be in magazines, although sadly there aren't as many these days. But, there isn't that sort of other editorial layer at the other end. In fact, the other checking layer that you find at the other end is usually a lawyer.
Oh yes, that sometimes happens too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think some writers actually, if you're not really strong on proofreading, some people actually pay for a proofreader as part of. I know a few copywriters do, and particularly if you're in that high end, I certainly, that's something to look. Or some people use things like Grammarly or Hemingway to vet their work, which is sort of online sort of spell checking things that, with an extra level.
Absolutely. But look, as a rule of thumb, both of us are very big on leaving your work to breathe. And that could be either for a few hours if you're really on deadline, or it could be overnight. I prefer overnight, but sometimes it is just a few hours because I have to file it. Yeah,
exactly. I usually try and do overnight as well, because I pick up better things, and if I can take longer to do it, sometimes I come to and fro a piece, like scope it all out, write it, and then come back and polish it, and then come back and polish it again, and every time it's a little bit better. If I have a bit more time.
I'm the
So
same.
we're almost out of time, Rach. So
Yes.
I wanted to mention a few resources that I found really helpful. I really we both talked about Ed Gandia a few times. He's got a great podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's the High Income Business Writer. Gotta love that title. And his website is really good with some of his great posts. And that's a really good introduction into that content writing and that high, the high end, which is actually important to get a feel for it.
Yep. And business writing. He has a real focus on business writing as well. But
He does.
So much wisdom there. I love that. We also we mentioned earlier, Jennifer Goforth Gregory, who I don't think she's got a podcast, but she's got a fantastic blog, and a Facebook group is really good too.
Yeah, it is. And her focus is on content marketing. I haven't read the book, but I've heard great things about it. And actually, to go back to Ed Gandia, there's a great episode where Jennifer is on his podcast and she talks. And that actually is quite good as well.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to listen to that one. I think that's probably one of the only ones I've missed.
Yeah, and there's also Lindy Alexander is on one of Ed's as well.
I have heard Lindy. Yeah, she's great.
That's a great
Yeah.
one. And I also find HubSpot. We've talked about HubSpot before, but it's got some great information and some really good, their blog is quite good, particularly on the content marketing side.
Yeah, no, I love HubSpot. Okay, well, I think we've probably reached the end of the blog of the episode, haven't we?
I think we have. So hopefully this inspires people and also gives them ideas for a new income.
Yes, we're trying to be a little bit shorter with our episode today, given that we've been cracking the 20-minute level the last few weeks. So this is a little bit shorter, but you can always, if you feel that there's anything we didn't cover or that you'd like to know more about content marketing, you can email us at thecontentbite@gmail.com, or just come to our Facebook page, The Content Bite.
Fantastic. All right, thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay, see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Yep, bye.